In terms of the insurance crisis that we have been facing in California, some people are getting significant price raises, some people are losing their coverage. Where do you think everything is headed?
So I think in the short and midterm, the regulatory changes that the insurance industry asked for, they said would be sufficient to get them writing insurance again. Now that was before the LA fires, but the LA fires really were not a question of if, it was really when, right? So the insurers knew last year when they asked for all these regulatory changes and said they would start writing insurance again, that there was a significant possibility and probability that there would be severe catastrophic wildfires somewhere in California. They've come early, but here we are. So I don't think that these fires should be a pretext or an excuse for the insurers to live up to their commitment to start writing insurance again. But they might start pulling back again. But let's assume they don't. And let's assume for the short term, the next couple of years, that insurers start writing insurance again. They stop being as aggressive in non-renewing. They start writing in the wildland-urban interface. In the long run, though, what's happening is the background risk of these extreme and severe weather-related events is going up. And the likelihood of losses is going up too. And so what's going to happen is that background risk and those increased losses is going to overwhelm whatever regulatory changes are being done in California or any other state for that matter to try to keep insurance being written. So I believe we are marching steadily towards an uninsurable future in this country.
There are some people, Dave, that argue that the reason we are having these fires is because of not managing the forests. What are your thoughts on that?
So it is true that in the United States, and particularly in the western United States, we have done a very bad job of managing natural lands, wildlands, forests, as well as brushlands like those around the city and in the city of Los Angeles. And with regard to forests, what's happened is we've had about 170 years of suppression of all fire in forests since Western settlement began. It used to be that the way that nature managed our western forests was fire was a routine part of the ecology. Fires would ignite, they would burn through the forest, they would remove all the low-lying vegetation and small trees, and our forests were characterized by older, more mature trees and a lot of open space. Well, then we had Western settlement, genocide against Native American peoples who used to do cultural burning, stopped that practice, and we stopped any fire in the forest, right? That was the dominant view of firefighters, both federal and state. Well, now our forests are choked with fuel as a result. So in the last 20 years or so, a practice has emerged with a lot of science behind it and a lot of empirical evidence that if we mimic the way that nature managed our forests and our brushlands by reintroducing fire to the forest, by thinning, not clear cutting, but thinning the forest to replicate how fire would eliminate vegetation, by removing and thinning the low-level vegetation, we can dramatically reduce the severity of wildfires. And that's true. And so the state of California has appropriated $3.6 billion over the last couple of years to do this very thing. In the bipartisan infrastructure bill at the federal level, there was about $5 billion for this sort of work across national lands. Cities and counties are taxing their residents to do this sort of land management, reduction of hazardous fuels. Homeowners associations and individual homeowners are doing defensible space around their homes, all of which is terrific. It helps. However, we need to do both and. We need to address the underlying driver of the risk, which is climate change, and we need to do mitigation. Just doing mitigation is not going to solve our problem. It'll make things better. It'll reduce the risk, but it does not, by any stretch of the imagination, eliminate the risk, and the risk keeps growing because of climate change. But here's something else the insurers can and should do. So the insurers use computer models to decide whether to write or renew the insurance for your home and business. They assign your home or business a modeled risk score. The problem is that despite all of these different mitigation practices I've described, the models used by the insurance companies to decide whether to write or renew your insurance do not take into account mitigation. So you can spend thousands or tens of thousands of dollars hardening your home, defensible space. You're paying taxes at the federal, state, and local level for forest management or brushland management. And guess what? The insurance company still tells you we're not going to renew you. What we need to do is we need to require that the insurers' models account for this. So we need state legislatures and governors to stand up to the insurance industry and pass laws that say, look, we're spending billions on mitigation. The risk score models you use to decide whether to write or renew insurance need to account for that. So that's another major policy change we need to have to make sure insurance is more available in hard-pressed communities.
And it is actually, some insurance companies are becoming very tough. They're coming and actually looking at the homes and taking photos, and they're actually getting very thorough and analyzing how much vegetation you have.
They are. And I would say that to the extent that they're doing that and taking account of the good things you're doing, that's terrific. But if they're coming in and just saying, look, we don't like all these things you're not doing, and if you do, so we need you to do these things, and then you do them, and then they don't write you insurance, then what's the point? And that's the experience a lot of people have. They do all of the mitigation measures that the fire officials tell them to do, use impervious materials for the roof, shadow-resistant glass for the windows, protect the eaves of the homes from embers, not have any attached wooden structures, have defensible space 100 feet around the home, right? This is a partial list. They do all these things. They spend money on it, and their tax dollars are going to do forest treatment or brushland treatment, and then the insurance company still tells them, that's nice, but we're not going to renew you. So that's very frustrating, and rightly so, for people.